War has always been about adaptation, but during the Second World War, adaptation often meant survival. Soldiers on every front found themselves cut off from supply lines, short of equipment, and facing enemies with better resources. In those moments, ingenuity replaced weapons factories. Out of scraps of metal, branches, rope, or even discarded food tins, men fashioned traps that could delay enemy patrols, protect a position, or catch food when rations ran low. These weren't inventions out of luxury. They were born out of desperation. And the lessons they left behind still matter for anyone studying history, survival, or human resilience. Soldiers relied on snares and deadfalls to supplement food rations. One of the most common needs in isolated outposts was food. Standard rations were often inadequate, and in cut situations, troops had to make do with what they could hunt or trap. Wire from crates, parachute cord, or even twisted uniform threads became snares to catch rabbits or small birds. Soldiers in Eastern Europe and the Pacific jungles were known to set dozens of simple wire snares in brush paths, ensuring at least some would yield protein by morning. A reliable ratio used was one snare every 5 to 10 feet along a rabbit trail, giving higher odds of success. Deadfall traps were another method, using heavy logs propped up with sticks that collapsed when bait was touched. These required no manufactured parts at all, only careful balancing and knowledge of local animal habits. Soldiers would bait them with scraps of bread or bits of spoiled rations. For today's survivalist, the same principles apply. Using cord or flexible wire to create snares in game trails or rigging simple deadfalls with locally available timber can mean the difference between hunger and sustenance. Beyond food, traps played a role in defense. Soldiers didn't always have the luxury of barbed wire or mines, but they knew how to use terrain to their advantage. One technique was the punji pit, a hole dug 2 to 3 feet deep, lined with sharpened stakes, and camouflaged with leaves or grass. While most associate punji stakes with later conflicts, they were already in use during World War II, particularly in the Pacific Islands. Bamboo stakes smeared with mud or even waste increased the risk of infection, making even minor wounds debilitating in jungle environments. Tripwire traps were also improvised using salvaged wire and grenades. A grenade pin could be tied to a lorong wire across a trail. When an enemy patrol brushed it, the grenade would detonate. Crude but effective, these traps required careful planning to avoid accidents and were typically placed in areas where enemy approach was expected. Improvised alarms were just as important as deadly traps. Not every trap was designed to injure. Sometimes the goal was simply to gain warning of an approaching enemy. Soldiers used tin cans, pebbles, and wire to create perimeter alarms around camps. A simple system involved stringing cans with stones inside along a perimeter cord at ankle height. If disturbed, the noise alerted guards that something was moving nearby. In areas where silence was essential, soldiers used wires connected to suspended objects like glass bottles or bamboo poles that made distinct noises when tripped. In survival terms today, the same ideas are valuable. If camping in an area with wildlife or potential human threats, it is the same low-resource principle that soldiers depended on when no modern equipment was available. A trap was only useful if it remained unseen. Soldiers understood this and used the natural environment to conceal their work. Leaves, branches, soil, and even snow were carefully arranged over snares, pits, and wires. In the winter campaigns across Europe, trip tires were dusted with snow to hide them completely. In Pacific jungles, mud and foliage disguised punji pits or deadfalls. This attention to detail often determined whether a trap worked or failed. For anyone studying these methods today, the lesson is clear. Concealment is as important as construction. A trap or alarm that looks obvious loses its effectiveness. Whether setting a modern perimeter alarm for a campsite or learning traditional snaring techniques, blending the setup into the surroundings is the key to success. The power of these improvised traps was not in their sophistication, but in the creativity behind them. Soldiers took what they had, scraps of wire, broken crates, tin cans, bamboo, or spare rope, and turned it into something that kept them alive. For the historian, these details remind us that war is not only fought with tanks and planes, but also with the ingenuity of ordinary men forced to survive in extreme conditions. For the survivalist, the lessons are timeless. Learn to use the environment, understand basic mechanics, and never underestimate the value of small, simple tools. Though technology has advanced, the fundamentals of these traps remain relevant. Hunters still use snares and deadfalls in survival training. Military units still train with improvised alarms to secure camps. The adaptability shown by World War II soldiers continues to influence survival manuals and field guides today. These traps were never about luxury. They were about survival against hunger, against surprise attack, and against overwhelming odds. World War II was not only a clash of armies, but also a test of human endurance. Soldiers who built traps from nothing were proving that survival depended not on what they lacked, but on what they could invent. Whether catching food with snares, delaying patrols with pits, or guarding camps with simple alarms. They left behind lessons still worth learning. If this glimpse into the ingenuity of World War II soldiers sparked your interest, there's more history to uncover. Subscribe to From the Ashes. And share this guide with fellow history buffs and survival enthusiasts who appreciate the resilience and resourcefulness of the past.